y'all. Today I am sharing my new and improved fertilizer. This is a homemade version, and once you have the plants, it is basically free because I use rainwater too. So what I use first is comfrey. This is what I have used for years and years. This is a great plant, and this is such a good fertilizer that even the king uses this in his personal garden at High Grove. So it is really great. And a little information about comfrey. The reason that comfrey is so good is because it has super long tap roots that go down about 20 feet, and it mines for all of those minerals that are deep in the earth, and it brings them up and puts it into their leaves, and then you use that to make your fertilizer and the plants can uptake it. It also helps if you just plant them next to other plants. That is a great thing to plant around like fruit trees and fruit bushes. I've even seen people do this in their gardens where they just do a row of tomatoes or peppers and they plant comfrey back behind it, and the plants are massive. It just greatly improves whatever you plant it next to. It also has these really beautiful purple flowers. Mine aren't flowering right now. Mine struggle a little bit in the summertime, but they still do okay. But it has really pretty purple flowers, if I can talk, that the bees absolutely love. This is like their favorite plant, and when they're in bloom, they are just swarming this plant and love it so much. Other things with comfrey is it is a really good medicinal. We like to use this where we make like a tea out of the leaves and soak in it if we have sore muscles. That works great. Other things we have used it for is to help. The editor had a bunny that was 8 years old, and it started to have some digestive issues, and we don't have an exotic animal vet around here, so I decided to give it some comfrey and see if that would help. And within 8 hours, this bunny acted better than it had in years, and it lived 2 more years after we gave this comfrey daily. And that's another thing. People also use this as like a fodder for animals. They either give it to them fresh, or you can dry it and give it to them over the winter. So it is a really good plant. It has so many nice minerals. But I used to just make my fertilizer strictly with this, and I started adding something else to it, and you have to be careful with this one. This is my nettles. Now this is stinging nettles, so this is why you have to be careful, because it really does sting and really hurt. But whenever they start to go to seed, which mine already have, I use this. Since you can't use it medicinally once it goes to seed, I use this and I'm adding that into it. So I think we'll go ahead and start that. I'll show you what I do. So in the summertime, you may want to not like completely chop the whole plant. You may just want to do like little bits around it. But I really like to use the flowering stalks. What now? Bring your bucket closer. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. And that's another thing. It smells kind of bad. That's why I didn't want to bring it further. But I have noticed that adding the nettle into it, it does help with the smell. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of be rough with it. That is the great thing about perennials, is you can kind of be rough with them and they don't mind. And that's another good thing about perennials too. I have not been the best at taking care of my garden. We have had a lot of things come up, and perennials, they just seem to come up and keep going, and they don't, it's not that much trouble. They just kind of do their own thing. And these comfrey plants will also spread. I don't know if I said before, but I use the Russian, blocking 14 variety. And whenever it flowers, it doesn't produce a seed. That way it doesn't spread everywhere, because you don't want to plant this somewhere where like you have like a sewer line or a water line, since it has such deep tap roots. It's kind of like a willow in that sense. You want to be really careful. Even here where it gets super hot, they will still survive. Even if you like mow them over, they'll just stay for years and years. They do struggle a little bit in the summertime. We've actually had some cooler temperatures, and they look a lot better than they usually do in the summertime. Okay, so now we're going to go to the nettles. We're going to glove up, because this stuff is savage, and I suggest using like kitchen gloves, not like nitrile gloves, because it just goes right through that. This is what I found is the best. So we're going to get some of these. Mine, like I said, mine have already gone to seed, once and they have keep growing back. We got some rain and some cooler temperatures and they are super happy. Usually once they do that, they just die back down and they say they're done until next spring. But this year they are doing much better. This patch is probably a few years old and they just seem to keep spreading and are really happy with life right about now. So we'll get a few more. And like I was saying, this also has helped with the smell. It smells pretty bad. So that's the only negative to it, but most fertilizers don't smell good. Even if you do like the fish fertilizer or something like that, it does not smell good either. Funny story, I left that out one time and I knew exactly where I left it out. It was on the end of the house, and the next morning I came back and it was gone. It was either a fox or a raccoon. I'm not sure which, but it ended up stealing my bottle of fish fertilizer, and that stuff is not cheap. Okay, so after we have our bucket filled here, what I do is I just use rainwater and I pour that in there and we'll let that sit, get it all full. And if it doesn't want to stay, it's actually doing really good. I must have packed it in good. If it doesn't want to stay, you can use a shovel or some type of stick or something to shove it in there. And then add the lid, and I let this sit for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, I will come back and I'll show you how I do it and mix it all together and make our homemade fertilizer that we apply to our plants.
2 weeks later.
Okay, it's been 2 weeks and I wanted to clarify just a little bit. Whenever I was talking about using the comfrey medicinally, it does not smell bad. It just smells like regular comfrey. But whenever you let it sit here for 2 weeks outside, it's fermenting and that's what caused it to smell bad. So since it smells so bad, this was a lot of trial and error to figure out what to do to get that smell off of my hands. And I figured out that vinegar is the best thing to use, and I make my own homemade vinegar. I've got lots of videos of how I do that, but this is what works the best. I've even tried like the stainless steel bars and stainless steel bowls, anything like that, and none of that even touches this stuff. It's so bad. So I've found I do this, and what I do is I use somewhere between a quart to a half gallon of this in a bathtub of water, and I soak somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour. But this is the only thing I found. I guess kind of like if your pet gets sprayed with like a skunk or something, the acidity in this kind of like same like tomato juice, that's what gets rid of the smells. But that is the only thing I have found that works. So I'm going to show y'all what I do now. So we have our buckets. I usually do about 3 buckets to get everything done, and I don't use that straight. So what I do is I get some other type of container. We use this container. The lid's kind of broken on it, so it works all right.
Yeah, this is an old truck toolbox.
Yeah, other things you could do is you could do it in like a rain barrel if you wanted to, or even, I mean, just whatever you have around, trash cans, whatever you have around that will work. And so it's about to get really smelly, and I am so sorry to any of my neighbors about this. It lasts, what, a few hours maybe? So
Yeah,
it's not
usually by in the morning. It's pretty tame.
Yeah, but it's pretty bad the night up. But I'm sorry about that to my neighbors. But what I do is, this is enough usually for my vegetable garden, so you can see how fermented it is. Like, it smells so bad that the flies start coming and everything. So it's not very pleasant. But what I do for this, oh, that's heavy, is I pour it in like that. And I usually do, I might have put a little bit too much water in here, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Hopefully we don't regret that. Okay, so we'll get this. Woo, there's stuff flying out and all kinds of stuff. So there we go. So I'll dump that in there. I usually do about 1.5. And another thing that I didn't mention before that I like to do is I like to keep all of the comfrey and the nettle all together in like one piece. It's bad. He's trying to get away. He drew the short end of the stick there with this one.
The only problem is the wind is headed this direction. So.
But I like to keep it all in one big piece. That way I can just bring it all over to one side like that, and it pretty well mixes in whenever I do that. I was going to show, I don't know if I have it sitting here. I was going to try and show what color it looks like, but it is like a brownish color, almost kind of like the vinegar was. I use herbs in my vinegar to make it that color, but I'm sure you can kind of tell it's like a brownish color.
Let's pour it out.
Okay, can you see if I do that? See how it's kind of like a brownish yellowish color?
Yeah.
So it is it's still strong even though we diluted it. So we're gonna go ahead and come over to the garden and I'll show you. Watch out for the pole there. There we go. I think what I'll do is I'll come show the peppers. They're doing really good. I have found that this is great for vegetables and fruits. I use one other fertilizer, but as far as like the main fertilizer that's cheap, this is all I use. My other one is really, really cheap too, but it works great too, but it's more of a foliar fertilizer. So I'll just come through here and show you. I give them all a little bit. It is getting really hot, and also I do this every 2 weeks. So I have a schedule and do that by the end of the summer. I am so done. I'm ready to be done with the garden. But right now I'm almost to that point. We're not quite there yet. But it's really not hard to do. It's just with a big garden, it's a lot to do, like to hand water it. I'm sure somebody can do a system and have that even better, but right now what we're doing is just hand watering it. But as you can tell, the plants love it. Like, look at our sweet potatoes and our peppers. They are doing amazing. Everything benefits from it, and they are just doing great. And I've been doing this for quite a few years, and this has worked out wonderfully. So I hope this helps, and y'all find that it helps your garden, and y'all have a great garden, and it produces abundantly using the homemade fertilizer. Thank y'all all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.